ladies and gentlemen, some good stuff for y'all today. I'm excited to bring a first-time guest onto the show. My guy over here, as you see on your screen, Awthentik, representing the Dallas Cowboys NFC East rival, New York Giants. He's one of them ones, one of the good ones from per my estimation. I told him I was honest about it. Look, I couldn't tell him that I followed his stuff closely, but what I could tell him was that stumbled upon a lot of his work, through various times over the last 2 years or so. And every single time I've learned something. I've got an idea. I'm just left with this, like, wow, that dude's really got it going on. I love the production side of things. If you read his bio, you can tell that he's into all that stuff, and he's really just bringing a palatable product to a couple, the fan bases, or his fan base, that deserves it. But now us two joining forces here, breaking down this Cowboys at Giants Thursday night football matchup. Once again, bringing y'all the sports below the surface truth that we feel that you deserve. So it's a pleasure to work with you, man. And I appreciate you being so willing. I know our guy, Nick, so he may be joining us here in a little bit as well, just to pop on and give his 2 cents on this matchup. But he, a friend of his is a friend of mine. And so I didn't hesitate at all. Once he recommended you, I was like, yeah, I recognize the name. And once again, it just kind of jogged the memory a little bit. I was like, I know what he's about. Let's do this. So couldn't wait to do it, man. But Awthentik, thank you for being here, brother. Appreciate you.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I appreciate you reaching out. Shout out to Knicks, man, for connecting us together and whatnot. Looked at your content. I think it's going to be a really good vibe. Representing each side of the NFC East from a pretty realistic perspective. So
Yes,
I'm
sir.
definitely looking forward to it. And I'm co-streaming over on my channel as well. So shout out to all my folks in the building right now, and shout out to all your folks here as well.
Absolutely. So I'm gonna kick this off, dude. Really, I have 2 questions and a statement to start the show off.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna start with the statement, if that's okay. All right. The first one I kind of already touched on, but I just wanted to kind of re-emphasize a little bit. I don't care what team you cover. I don't care what relationship you and I may or may not have had in the past, whatever interactions, things like that. I don't care if you cover a different team in the future. Like I said, behind the scenes, we are in the same content space. You and I are running the same race, and you have a fan of me, bro. Seriously, because like I said, I'm inspired by some of the work that you do. And I don't know if you go to this guy's Twitter right here, Awthentik, just the way that you see it, I believe it's your pinned tweet, if I'm not mistaken. I guess the end season.
Yeah, the in-season documentary
is what you're calling it.
Yeah.
That's some spectacular production already. I know that was just kind of the teaser trailer that you have posted there at the top of your tweet, but I was like, and once again, I don't know what your process is, but me in this content production space, like, I'm wearing every hat. I'm editor, I'm screenwriter, I'm all the production, I'm all the marketing, I'm reaching out for partnerships, like trying to figure out, wearing all these different hats, right? And so I just know some of the nuances that people would never understand if they never really lived in our world, right? The things that you're able to do as far as just things so simple as like piecing together audio and video overlays and making it just right. And then having just all your transitions smooth, all that type of stuff. So, man, you're killing it. Now for the 2 questions, I just wanted to know, it's once again, it's simple. Just kind of let the people get a better feel for you who may not know who you are or anything about your background from my side of things, right?
Got you.
Number 1, what got you, or I guess how long have you been doing this? And number 2, very, very simple. What I guess what motivated you to start? Like, what was your aha, like, I'm about to just bend my knees and jump moment whenever you knew that you were going to go for it and take it by the head?
Yeah. So background, I'm just a dude who was just a hip hop head, got off into hip hop and started recording myself. And then that turned into, an engineering job later on down the line. I went to school for engineering and whatnot. And then my day one homie, who's my co-host on my show, The Beard, he was like, hey, I'm trying to start a podcast. What do you think about starting a podcast? And at that point, I was working at a recording studio. We were doing podcast already. And I told him, we'll just kind of put it on paper and, make it make sense. And he sent me this elaborate breakdown of what he wanted to do. Something like you would see on like Total Access back in the day. And I
Okay.
was just like, I don't think we can really pull this off, but let's try and let's see what we can do. And it was like about 5 or 6 of us at first because we did need some extra hands and whatnot. But
Hmm.
slowly but surely, just like you were saying, you ultimately just end up wearing all the hats.
Yeah.
And it's just me and him. We're running this channel, and I've kind of shifted from artist to audio engineer to
Yeah.
now trying to dive into cinematography. I've done a lot of sound for cinema, like a bunch of movies already.
Hmm.
And now I'm just kind of trying to get like my director's hat on and whatnot. And that's kind of where the concepts for that documentary trailer you saw come from.
Yes.
Like I figure just fuse sports, along with what I love to do, which is audio and video. And I've been studying cameras and stuff like that for like over a decade now. I've been engineering for 25 years. I'm
Wow.
41 now, so I've been in the music business for a long
Man, you don't
time.
look a day over 30.
That's what a lot
I
of people
just
say.
turned 32 weeks ago, so I
I think
thought
it's
we
the
were about the
lighting and the
same age.
camera and shit, but like
You're doing well, then. Keep it up. Keep going, brother.
yeah, but so now I'm just kind of, music has taken some different shifts that don't really align with what I like to do within that space. So
Okay.
I'm trying to kind of take it into film, and like I'm a big just movie junkie, and I love what they're doing with the Hard Knocks type of stuff and
Yes.
fusing stories with documentary with football and all that. So now we're just doing that, and I've been podcasting now with my co-host for 5 years, and I got to give him all props. Like he got me into music back when we were like probably about like 8 or 9, just doing some like silly recordings in the crib. And it was his idea to start the podcast. And, I just fell in love with doing this podcasting. And the more and more I wanted to do it, it was like, all right, if I'm going to do it, I got to, one, present a lot of value. And
Yeah.
then two, we got to do it at a high level. And, we end every show on our channel. I always say, keep raising that bar, keep living those dreams, because
Yep.
I try to just do that every day. It's like, how do we get better? How do we make the product that much better? Even for the people that have been, rocking with us since day one when we started this podcast in 2019, and we were just like some fools just lunching around and whatnot. It was it's just like all about just even giving those people the value. I don't want it to just be for the new viewer or the new listener. I want it to be for the people that, just like anybody. Be broad, bring value to the community, and do it as best as I can.
Love that, man. So essentially, kind of what I'm gathering is just to make it once again palatable for those and as simple as possible. We're just a couple guys with a passion and a purpose to bring sports below the surface and bring it to light in our own creative way, right? And that's exactly what the vibe that I've gotten from you, as you just explained right there. Super, it's cool stuff, man. And I'm sure you know the same thing. I'm learning new things every day. That's one of my favorite parts about this business is like falling in love with just making thumbnails, like just mastering that craft and then finding a new thing to take on to. I just had business cards made for myself. Just it feels cool to have something tangible when you have those day-to-day interactions, because at the end of the day, that's really what it's all about, right? Is meeting like-minded people and just having that community, because just as human beings, primitively speaking, that's who we are. We crave that community. And so that's one of the things that we love so much about sports and about football. It's the ultimate unifier, I always say. So
Absolutely.
just finding those new avenues to explore your creativity and just share your passion, man. There's countless ways to do that, but we have just found our niche in the world of football, and that's what's brought us to this moment today.
Yeah.
And so the universe, two worlds collide, and two division rivals, 1 and 2 squads right now who are backs against the wall, for lack of a better term. But we got Cowboys at Giants Thursday night football, primetime divisional matchup. There's lots of hype. Obviously, two of the biggest brands, not just in football, but in sports, period, most recognizable brands, and so a couple teams who, the Giants have obviously had their share of struggles over the course of the last, half decade to a decade or so. You can at least say that you've witnessed and been around for and been an adult for 2 Super Bowls and 2 Super Bowl championships in your life.
Yeah, I've
I
seen a
don't
couple.
have
Yeah.
I don't have that same pleasure. So and now the Cowboys, from 3 consecutive 12-win seasons to a point to where we got Cowboys fans all over Twitter now. I'm seeing this is officially news to me as of today, petitioning to have Jerry Jones dethroned from the throne that he
that's wild.
has always and will continue to occupy until his passing. So yeah, man, times are tough right now in the Cowboy streets. And I guess I'll just be forthcoming about this whole prediction. Like, I'm really not into predictions. Number one, because nobody really cares if you're right. And two, if you're wrong, you get flamed for it. So it's like a lose-lose, you know what I'm saying? But I will say that the Cowboys, I believe, have won the last 12 matchups. Or I guess Dak Prescott is
Dak Prescott 12.
12 in a row.
Cowboys 6 in a row.
Yeah. So then
Andy Dalton was the game that we won last in 2020. The last game when Washington won the division with 7 wins.
Wow. Wild how just everything that's happened just in that short 4-year time span now.
Yeah.
And then with the way that they're looking right now with Jaden Daniels, it seems like their future is at the very least promising. We'll see if they can't stay
I'm
out
happy
of
for them.
way.
My co-host being a Commanders fan, I'm extremely happy for them. It's an amazing thing for him.
It is cool. It's exciting. And you guys with a young superstar in your own right, a rookie who is sort of coming of age right before our very eyes that we're going to get to see on a national stage tomorrow night. Malik Neighbors, I can't wait to see. There's the reason why he was the feature of the Giants side of this thumbnail that you guys are putting on. So big fan of his game, no question about it. But, so for me, the Giants have, at least in my adulthood, since I've been taking this seriously for about 3 or 4 years now, right, have always been there when the Cowboys need a big win, kind of the get right game, right? And things have, they've sort of controlled that matchup. But I'll be honest with you, man, it's bleak, and it's bleak for good reason. And I'm an optimist by nature. Now I've sort of had to transition out of that, right? I have to give the fans the honest, objective truth. And so that's one of the things I pride myself on. And so right now, objectively and honestly speaking, this Cowboys team is in trouble tomorrow night. And it's I don't care if it's Daniel Jones or Daniel Dones who's playing quarterback for y'all. Okay. I don't care if it's Devin Singletary, or as my friends in my Cowboys group here locally like to call him, Devin Dingleberry. Okay.
I thought you were going to say Motor. I didn't expect that.
I'm a huge fan of Motor. And I'm a truther of his. I've had him rostered on my fantasy squad, numerous times over the last couple of years. I know what he's about. He's, I believe, second in the NFL right now in forced tackles or forced missed tackles per touch. So, clearly some talent there. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
And I don't know how many people saw the offseason. You mentioned Hard Knocks earlier that the Giants were featured in. There's a lot that you can take away from that, right? And it was awesome seeing the behind the scenes, the dynamic between Shane and Dayball, the way that they sort of communicate about roster building and player acquisition, and just hearing them delegate about Devin Singletary, it was cool. Same thing about I think you guys have 3 new free agent offensive line additions. Am I correct there?
Yep.
Actually, I think that's a good place to start right now, because I believe the Giants, let me just ask you this question. What is the latest on Andrew Thomas right now? What's sort of the pulse from the Giants community, your perspective on that situation with Andrew Thomas?
I mean, Andrew Thomas is, our cornerstone on that offensive line. And I always tell people it's kind of interesting that the Giants might be one of the only teams that has a cornerstone left tackle like that and struggles up front with the offensive line the way that we did, in the past couple of years and whatnot. And I think coming off a game like what you saw, against Myles Garrett and the Cleveland Browns front, he allowed the most pressures he's allowed since 2020. He allowed 7 pressures just to Myles Garrett, 8 on the day. But he's only allowed 1 sack. And I think maybe outside of the Giants community, there might be some people thinking like, oh, are there question marks about Andrew Thomas? But within the community of the New York Giants, there's no questions there. He's a guy. He's been one of the best players on our roster for a long time. I thought Joe Shane did a really good job, and it's starting to pay dividends now with the, bolstering up the offensive line, bringing in a guy like Jermaine Illuminor from the Las Vegas Raiders, along with their offensive line coach, Carmen Brasillo, right? And then you also bring in John Runyon from Green Bay, who has a lot of experience, been a starter in this league for 3 to 4 years. And then, the last-minute signing that they brought in, Greg Van Roten, who, he's just an average type of offensive lineman, but he's doing a good job. I mean, we've dealt with terrible offensive line play for now about a decade.
Yes.
It's going all the way back to that Nate Solder contract. All throughout past 2017, we just had issue after issue, starting from maybe Eric Flowers being drafted here and being a draft bust. And then with Evan Neal, kind of going through the same kind of struggles that we saw with Eric Flowers. So it's good to see that Joe Shane learned from his mistake in the first year that they were here, right? They overachieved in 2022. They went to the playoffs, won a playoff game, and he decided to pay his quarterback maybe overpaid him. You know, in my perspective, I think there were other quarterbacks on the market you could have brought in that could give you the same value. Baker Mayfield was out there, Gardner Minshew was out there, and all those guys were talking $5 million or less, and Daniel Jones making $40 million. But I think he made a major mistake that first year, banking on some of those offensive linemen that he had drafted, the two guys out of North Carolina and Joshua Zito and Marcus McKeithen, hoping that these guys would elevate and take that next step, but to protect his $160 million investment at the quarterback position. In return, in 2023, Daniel Jones ends up first getting a neck injury in Miami, and then when he finally comes back, and it seems like they kind of rushed him back a little bit for that Raiders game because Tyrod Taylor ended up going down, he then ends up, tearing his ACL and being out for the year. And all of that had to do with the offensive line. All of it had to do with not being able to protect the quarterback. The ragtag type of offensive line that we put out there against Miami, that's what led to those statements on Hard Knocks where Joe Shane said even Patrick Mahomes wouldn't be able to succeed in front of this offensive line. And I totally disagree with what he's saying there because although Daniel Jones was getting killed in that game, we were down by 7 at the half. The defense scored our first half touchdown of the year in that game, and it was week 5. And they had 3 turnovers in that game, right? So to me, you put Patrick Mahomes in that line. I mean, it's one of the best quarterbacks we've ever seen, if not the best quarterback we've ever seen. But there's been, a lot of excuses for Daniel Jones, the offensive line being one of them, the wide receiver one being the other. And now with drafting Malik Neighbors and then patching up all these problems that we had on the offensive line, even kind of going away from the investment of a top 10 pick in Evan Neal to bring in Jermaine Illuminor from the Las Vegas Raiders to really take his spot now. I think that they're just learning from their mistakes, but you can't continuously build a team like that by having to see the mistake to actually try to correct it. You should be able to correct these things not on the fly, but even earlier when the problem doesn't present itself. I think that you can find ways to understand if you're going to pay a quarterback, all right, we need some offensive linemen up front, and it's been an issue. But so far, so good through 3 weeks of football. Daniel Jones has not been sacked that much.
Yeah, and you'll see people say sometimes, right? And I agree to an extent, but sacks are in some sense a quarterback stat as well, right? Having the ability to sense and feel the pressure, being able to step up in the pocket, navigate the pocket, right? And it's not just stepping up, it's navigating it, right? Because it's multifaceted and multi-directional. But there's no question that the situation that you're placed in at the quarterback position 100% dictates a lot of your immediate success or failure, right?
Absolutely.
Because at the end of the day, you and I both know, and I feel like most people who are in this, watching this, who will see this, are probably pretty well versed in the things that you and I talk about heavily and focus on, and it's much less to do with physical ability. Yes, you have to have certain physical tools, right? And most highly touted and highly drafted quarterbacks are selected based upon their projectability with the tools that they bring to the table physically.
Yeah.
But it's you and I know that the ones who make it, the ones who last, and the ones who can make the biggest difference early and through and sustain that for the franchise that selects them is right here between the ears, right? How well can you process information? How quickly can you process information? Mm-hmm. And then all the other things, right? Can you navigate the pocket? Can you protect the football? Can you deliver an accurate football? Can you, just make plays off script and out and off platform? It's all those extra things, but those are secondary, tertiary, and then whatever number 4 in that same sense is. I don't know how to say that, quarterary or whatever. It's all first and foremost is right here.
Yeah, decision making.
Yeah, and so a little bit of background on me. We didn't touch on this, and I didn't for good reason. I didn't want to. I'm trying to learn about you. I'm a sports guy always, my whole life. I was an athlete, played professional baseball, retired. Now I'm here. My girls, my daughters are my 9 to 5, and then when they sleep, that's when I
heard you say that in one of your videos. Yeah. I dig that, bro.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So that's me right now. But that's one of the contributing factors to the Sports Below the Surface moniker that the Lando show sort of is founded upon. And I have that ability to relate to this right here between the ears. It's even bigger than how well can you process information and how quickly can you process it and how well can you see the field vertically, horizontally. it's about can you quiet out the noise?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of noise playing in that market in New York, that market in Dallas. Not an easy thing, right? The spotlight's bigger here.
I'd argue it's more pressure for your quarterback in your situation.
That's true, and I have argued that because there's a lot of different reasons, but most notably for me, the Cowboys aren't. I don't call them America's team. I call them America's favorite team to hate, and that's because you have the biggest fan base, right? People get sick of it. They get sick of seeing Cowboys fans everywhere. And, the reality is there's bad apples in every bunch, but when you have the biggest fan base, you have the most bad apples. And so it just puts a bad taste in America's mouth. So the truth about that is 31 other franchises love to see the Cowboys fail.
Yeah.
That's just the truth. That's the way it is. Everybody, because, I don't think I need to go too deep into that, but
facts.
Anyway, I started with the trenches for a reason, because that's where this Cowboys team right now struggles. And it's less to do with the offensive line. They actually do have the horses and the forces up front offensively to get it right and to get it done. And especially with the quarterback who has helped, he's been the driving force for the number one offense, number one or two, depending on which metrics you like, over the course of the better part of the last 2 years and change. So, that part is going to probably correct itself for better or for worse down the stretch. And the reason I say that is because if you're winning football games and it's too little too late down the stretch, and now all of a sudden you got a worse draft pick. Dak Prescott is at the very least, like, by himself is worth what? I don't know. You be the judge on how many wins, but we know that this is the ultimate team sport.
Yeah.
Okay? Right now, the Cowboys' two biggest problems, and then we'll transition back to your side of things, and I'll just kind of get your perspective on it, okay? Most importantly, they do not have the bodies on their defensive interior. Their interior defensive line, they do not have the bodies. And so this brings me to my first question, and it's not necessarily a punchline. It's just a question that I posed, and I want to say Nix was on with me when we were having this discussion. When you guys traded with us for Jordan Phillips, we acquired Jordan Phillips from the New York Giants, an intra-division trade, which most people, for some reason, still seem to believe. They pretend like those don't happen or it's not real. Not true. It's very real, and it happens all the time. But I asked myself, knowing that this is one of the few holes, what is Shane doing, granting us this body that we didn't previously possess? Mozzie Smith, yes, but he was the one that people were labeling a bust already. He was the lone one-tech body type that we had on the roster before acquiring Jordan Phillips. And then, of course, Linval Joseph came along before the season begun as well. But I was thinking to myself, all right, what does Joe Shane know that the Cowboys don't about this player? So I'm curious, right? And for those who are unaware still, Jordan Phillips, and I hate bringing this to light because I have so much respect for the player, but once again, I got to keep it honest, keep it a buck.
Right.
Was phantom IR. I'm calling it phantom IR. Essentially, they faked an injury for him, placed him on the IR because he was that unplayable. And the film is very damning. But I'm just curious what was Giants fans' reactions when they learned about this trade, and did anybody have any sense of potential sabotaging? I'm wondering, if Shane was secretly hoping that Phillips would be on the roster prior to week 4 or leading into week 4, and knowing that was going to be trouble for the Cowboys if we didn't figure that out already. Do you have any insight into that situation?
Yeah, I mean, that was before Elijah Chapman really came to light for the Giants as far as interior defensive line. We looked at that like we kind of fleeced y'all on that. Phillips was a guy that we didn't even look at as starting level type of talent. And the Giants are missing a 3-tech. We need a solid 3-tech. Elijah Chapman is kind of becoming that guy, but losing Leonard Williams the year before, or trading Leonard Williams before the deadline to the Seattle Seahawks, I was never high on Jordan Phillips. Coming from Buffalo, he was a guy that I thought was going to be on the bubble of even making the roster. And to actually get, some value from that trade, I mean, we all looked at it wow. Yeah, I mean, it was pretty fascinating to me because he was a guy that I thought was actually going to probably get cut.
So, okay, so then there you go. In that case, then it was a fleece in some sense, right? And
yeah, that's what it felt like.
Yeah. Okay. So I love that. That's smart team building. Mad respect to Shane if that is the case, and it seems as if that checks out based on the Cowboys' experience just through 2 games right now with that player in particular. So
It was a conditional pick, though, right? Like, didn't he have
yeah,
to play a certain amount of snaps for the Giants to get a sixth? I believe it was.
yeah, and I'll look it up because I want to be accurate here.
Yeah,
There were some conditions. I know it was a pick swap essentially, 6th and a 7th.
that is what it was. Yeah.
I'm going to pull that up just to make sure that we're spot on here.
Yeah, that was interesting to me. And Elijah Chapman now has kind of like came to light for the Giants. He's in the first couple of games been like our second best lineman. Outside of this last game against the Browns, which I do take that game with a grain of salt for the Giants defensive front because we blitzed a lot more than we normally do as far as underneath the Shane Bowen system. Wink Martindale was a guy that blitzed a bunch, but I thought that those two guys and maybe DJ Davidson was going to be the other guy that was going to play interior defensive line as well, but Jordan Phillips never seemed like a real option for the Giants, but Shane likes to bring in some of those former guys from Buffalo that he had drafted. He's done that with I want to say 9 or 10 players. Even Cole Beasley. He brought in Austin Prohl. He brought in who else did he? I mean, there's just been a bunch of guys. John Feliciano on the offensive line side of the ball. He just loves some of those picks that didn't pan out with the Buffalo Bills when he was there. I remember putting down some kind of notes about it. It was 8 or 9 players.
So there you go, right there. And it is funny how regionality kind of plays into some of that, right? But like the players that you're just locally, other local franchises, it's kind of easier to do a little bit of a scouting report through the grapevine, I guess, with your pro scouting department. But here's the terms officially of that trade that we mentioned. So it is the Giants. They trade. It's Jordan Phillips and a 7th round pick in 2026. For the Cowboys in exchange for a 6th round pick. And the conditions were, like you touched on, right there. If Phillips is on the Cowboys roster for 2 games, then the deal goes through. So you guys
now you're making a lot of sense.
yeah. So that box has already been checked then. You guys get a condition. The conditional 6th is now an unofficial 6th round pick in 2026.
Yeah.
So, hey, good business. Shout out to Joe Shane for making that happen, man.
Yeah, it's a good move.
Good move. Good business. So that's one of the things I wanted to touch on. Next thing I wanted to get your opinion on is how do you see the Giants attacking the Cowboys defense, knowing what we know and knowing that the Giants they liked you guys favor 12 personnel, meaning 2 tight ends on the field.
Yep.
Oftentimes.
A little 13 at times too.
A little 13. Yep. 3 tight ends on the field, which is a discussion that we're going to have on the Cowboys' behalf as well. But for the Giants' sake, but y'all are one of the more throw heavy teams out of that formation and that out of that package, right?
Yeah.
Do you anticipate, and I think I know your answer here, Brian Daboll, obviously he's looked at the film of the Cowboys. All you got to do is watch the last 2 games, and you get a pretty good feel for what we do or don't present in the run defense department. Do you feel as if, copy and paste the mold of what the Ravens have done to us? Kind of the Saints did a little bit. They threw on us a little bit more. It was more play action, deep shots that broke us. But
yeah.
And then obviously the Packers and the Bills last season and the Niners as well. Do you think it's going to be more that style approach, like saying, hey, let's see what you guys got with our revamped offensive line? Can you handle us up front? And do you see that it's just being more of a run heavy, run first approach?
I mean, if it was me, scheming up to call the game plan against you, that's how I would look at it. A lot of teams have had success running the ball against you. And, you look at the game against the Saints even, Derek Carr barely throwing the ball. I think it was 15, 16 attempts, relying on explosive plays, down the field after establishing the run with Alvin Kamara. We really haven't done that. Even during the Saquon Barkley era with Brian Daboll, we didn't do that. We would always come out, get pass happy. When you go back to 2022 against the Minnesota Vikings, the first time in the regular season, along with when we played them in the playoffs, Saquon only getting 9, 10 carries, unable to establish the run, trying to throw the ball too much. The Eagles dog walked us in the playoffs because of that. Saquon had 4 carries in the first half, just didn't want to commit to what I always call RTDB on our channel, me and my co-host, right? You would think that that's the way to beat y'all. But can the Giants get a lead doing that? And I think that's the biggest thing, because Dallas has the type of offense. I know you guys don't have a lot of weapons on the perimeter outside of CeeDee Lamb, right? But you guys have the quarterback and the type of offense that you can drop back and pass the ball, say, 51 times or whatever it was, like you did against the Ravens, and still be in a game, kind of. We're talking about a team here in the New York Giants that's not on that type of level, if you ask me. And looking at that Browns game, I thought the Browns offense was going to be better, like I said, right? And they weren't. And it allowed the Giants to go out there and really have a pass-heavy type of scheme throughout the whole entire first half, where Daniel Jones is eaten through the passing attack. But if you look at the way the Giants sustained the run in that game, Devin Singletary had, I'm trying to remember this, I want to say it was 15 carries for 22 yards entering the final drive of the game with 2 minutes and 20 seconds left, and then he broke that 40-yard run. So you're talking about averaging like 1.45 yards per carry, right? That's not going to get it done. I don't think that the Giants can go in here against Dallas and just try to run the ball like that, because Dallas can just score in 5 plays, 6 plays, and then all that matriculating down the field is really for nothing. I saw Warren Sharp had put out a statistic about explosive plays on his channel today.
Oh, big fan of Warren Sharp, yep.
I'm a huge fan of Warren Sharp, right? And he said something like, even when teams don't have an explosive play on a drive, right now, teams are scoring at a 3.9% clip on a drive where they don't have an explosive play. With one explosive play, it jumps up 10 times the amount. And that's how the Saints got up on y'all, right? Rashid Shaheed was kicking y'all butt in that game with those big plays. You also had the big play from Alvin Kamara, the 52-yard screen play that they ran. So they're using the run. They're using the deep shot to then set you up when you're trying to pin your ears back and get after Derek Carr, and then creating explosive plays not only from the wide receiver core. Olave had one in that game as well, too, but also using the running back as well. Now, I like the way the Giants utilized Devin Singletary in the passing attack, right? Because in that Browns game, he had 40 yards on 4 receptions, and it just seemed like every time he caught the ball, he was getting positive yards. But
highly efficient right there, yeah. Yep.
Very efficient, right? But I think for y'all, it's going to be just stop Malik Neighbors. Like, granted, your rush defense has been poor, the worst in the league through 3 games right now, right? You've allowed all these running backs to just run up and down the field. But Derrick Henry there's a big difference there when you're going up against Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson than going up against Daniel Jones and Devin Singletary. I think it's very different. And the Ravens were just in a position where it was a Super Bowl. They had to win that game.
Yeah.
And I picked the Ravens to win it, because the Cowboys could afford to lose that game, come back here, bounce back against the New York Giants, and still have some success in front of them for the rest of the season. But that game, it was just a tough one. And, just trying to stop Lamar Jackson along with Derrick Henry. And I saw you guys in single high a lot of the time as well. I thought that was interesting. Like, if you come out against the New York Giants and you go single high and you don't put your best corner on Malik Neighbors, he's going to eat. We saw it in the Browns game. They made a major shift at halftime. Their cornerback, too, was getting cooked the whole entire first half, and we kept moving Malik Neighbors around. And it seemed like they wanted balance. Normally, they don't have Myles Garrett over the left tackle. He'll move around there sometimes, but normally he's over the right tackle. And in this game, he was over left tackle damn near the whole entire game. And then they would have Denzel Ward on the opposite side of him. And I think that they were trying to create a little bit of balance on both sides. We'll send heavier pressure from our best pass rusher and Myles Garrett on one side, and then we have our best corner on the other side. But at the beginning of the second half, they had to make an adjustment. Malik Neighbors at the half had 6 for 66 yards. They put Denzel Ward on him. He only had 2 receptions in the second half, and then he only allowed 10 yards of yak. So if you put somebody, and you guys are dealing with cornerback issues right now, Kalen Carson coming in banged up.
Yeah,
I forget the kid who's is it Booth that's going to be your
Andrew Booth. Yeah, so we just acquired him. Actually, he was part of the Nashawn Wright deal. The Cowboys were able to flip essentially a corner that similar situation with Jordan Phillips that we touched on earlier. But it was one of those things. Nashawn Wright was probably going to get cut. He had a tough camp, and
I like Nashawn Wright too. I like he made a couple of plays. I remember.
The body type is there. The length was there. That was one of those DQ dudes. Dan Quinn was all about the length and the just leverage at that position.
Yeah,
right? Not necessarily. He just had a very specific body type, and it was more just about, once again, the physical measurables as far as length is concerned, and not necessarily what's your IQ, how physical can you be. At the top of the route, at the line of scrimmage, how willing of a tackler are you? And so Nashawn just sort of struggled with a little bit of that, but it was more so just the length was a trouble for him. He couldn't get his hips around. He's just not fluid enough to really play that position. He just
Kalen brings some of those skill sets to the cornerback room.
So,
did you see what Philly did against the Saints in this past game?
Man,
they were dealing with rush issues as well. Definitely check that out, because the Eagles in the first 2 weeks couldn't stop the run either, and they were trying to do it with their front four, could not do it. And the way that they did it against the Saints was they would line up in what looked like their base defense, just sending forward the passer, and last minute, after they would see the Saints do all of that pre-snap motion, they would bring that extra guy down in the box. And I think that's something that you guys could probably take a page out of their book. Granted, we're not as heavy of a run team, but if it starts to get a little out of control early, put an extra guy in the box and put a safety over the top of Malik Neighbors and make the New York Giants beat you with the other guys.
So that's exactly that. That's my game plan, right? I wanted to touch on that a little bit too. And for me, it's load the box. Yes, it's play a little bit more man coverage, which is ironic enough because that's exactly what Cowboys fans couldn't wait to get away from, right? In a too high shell league that we're seeing now.
Yeah.
The league that what's his face on NFL Network wants to get away from. I know you saw that.
I did, and I saw it was Mike Florio that birthed it, and then they were talking about it on ESPN. Like, I don't know what they're doing.
It's like we talked about behind the scenes, man. It's my first reaction to that was he must be on the hot seat. Like, look, like he gotta run up the impressions and the clicks and the likes and stuff like that for ESPN. Yeah. It must be trying to figure something out, cutting bait or something, whatever. But so yes, Andrew Booth. That's a massive question mark. And one of the things that, to me, it's right off the bat. Yes, it would behoove the Cowboys to make sure that Trey Diggs is lining up across from Malik Neighbors as often as humanly possible in this matchup. But that's the beauty of having a quality offensive coordinator, a play caller, just your offensive staff in general that can scheme and not be be matchup specific, attacking your weaknesses. So my most recent project that whoever's watching can go find right now, you see, if you type in the Lando show, click on the thumbnail that says malpractice with Mike McCarthy.
That's the one I watched, man. That was a really good video.
And some of the, once again, apologies on some of the production. I didn't realize that the video I was sharing was still small. I didn't blow it up. We'll get there, man. We're
that's cool. Progress. That's cool,
every day, slowly but surely. The thing is, man, just some of the easy buttons that are so simple. In modern football in general, but especially in the National Football League, when you have a smart quarterback, you give him information before the ball is snapped, the pre-snap motion, right? And then misdirection is a different nuance, but equally as useful and difficult to deal with if you're the opposing defense. Play action rate, that's another one. Very quarterback-friendly tool in your tool belt.
Even when the running game's not working.
Exactly. Yeah. So all three of those things, man, the Cowboys just refuse to deploy. And it's, once again, like I said, it's malpractice on behalf of Mike McCarthy. And it's reasons why, we were in this exact same situation last year going into week 5, got embarrassed by the Niners. CD had the same exact sort of tantrum on the sideline. There was all this hoopla and hype about, is CD bought in? Are they giving up? Whatever. Should we fire McCarthy? And then what people know, that if they're really plugged in and like following along, you won't see this necessarily via mainstream media. But what happened was the Cowboys were very low ADOT, very just by the book, old school West Coast offense, which is exactly what Mike McCarthy, Brian Schottenheimer, and Mike Solari are, who are the head coach and now the play caller, offensive coordinator, and offensive line coach in that respective order. All three of these guys are from the same tree.
Yeah.
Okay? It was very by the book. It was double slants to the field side, and quarterbacks were sitting on that, reading it. It was, it was a lot of check down passes to the running back, which was sort of the first read, like just by design, like as an extension of the running game, right? Just get the ball out and let them go make plays. And it was so basic. It was so repetitive, and it was so non-effective because, once again, they weren't utilizing the easy buttons of offense and building on top of that, which, the West Coast system, it's all tied to the quarterback's feet. Everything is in sync, right? The quarterback knows based on what his footwork is telling him when the ball should be out and where to go with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a very, I guess it's an advanced system just as far as the timing and the footwork goes. But at the end of the day, the Cowboys just put too much on the plate of the quarterback, and Mike McCarthy is not helping out a young offensive line by asking Dak Prescott to drop back and stand in the pocket. You can do things. I don't care what year they're in, right? We watch college offenses all the time. Roll the pocket, change the platform, misdirection and motion on every snap just to hold the second level in particular in the run game with misdirection. Just make them think, hesitate just for that extra split second. That could be that extra yard before contact, right? And for those who are unaware, right, it's super simple. Like I said, I try to make this as palatable as possible. At snap motion is the technical term that we're going to use, but pre-snap motion is the one that is the generic term that you see used all the time now. And there's a reason for that, because it freaking works. But it's at snap motion for me that I want. Okay. And that essentially means movement behind the line of scrimmage at the time the ball is snapped. Okay. And what that does, and I'm sure you know this, Awthentik, right? It's a leverage advantage. Number one. Okay. You're essentially giving your playmaker or your skill position player a head start. Okay. Number two, you're giving your quarterback information based on coverage, formation, and alignment. Okay. Number three, like I said, you're forcing communication from the defensive side. So they're having to actively communicate while the ball is being snapped. Hey, shift. Hey, you got here. Hey, Phil, all these different things. It's like rapid.
Yeah.
So it makes life a little bit easier. If it's not even that necessarily makes it easier, it's that it makes it more difficult for the defense to deal with. All right, Trey Diggs heading into the Saints game, he talked about it. Clint Kubiak, the new OC in New Orleans, is
did a damn good job in first two games.
Yeah, absolutely. Of the Shanahan tree, and Cowboys fans are very familiar with that. Like we know in years past, prior to Mike Zimmer, and still under Mike Zimmer, but with Dan Quinn, right, we had no answers for the Kyle Shanahan tree. And the reasons for that are what? Misdirection, motion, play action. It's difficult for opposing defenses to deal with. And so the example I use, right, a lot of the Shanahan tree, they condense the formation. So it's tight splits. You got two receivers and a tight end on one side, and then a receiver who is essentially like inside where the traditional slot receiver would be. So it's very close. And what the reason, that traffic, that's exactly right. And so the opposing DBs, especially, they have to navigate all that traffic, and you're creating free releases and natural rubs from the bunch side of that formation. But if you take a guy from the bunch side and you're moving him, well, now there's two defenders, moving him pre-snap, right? You motioning him pre and at snap. Now, all of a sudden, Trey Diggs not only has to try to keep track of where his man is headed, if it's in man coverage, he's having to navigate around now, all of a sudden, Jordan Lewis and Deron Bland as well to try to figure that out.
Who's going under? Who's going over?
Yeah, he's got to deke around, Damone Clark. He's got to dodge, bob and weave, duck, dip, dive, and drive around, name your linebacker this year or last year, Eric Kendricks, right? DeMarvion Overton, you name it. So it's just, like you said, it's creating traffic, and it's difficult. But this Cowboys team doesn't do that. They make Dak Prescott try to force tight windows with receivers who are in, I call it, it's stagnant pre-snap position. Everybody's starting from a standstill. Okay. You're not giving any leverage advantages. You're not giving your quarterback any tells as far as what coverage or what alignments or what even rolled coverages he's going to see post-snap. You're not giving your receiver a head start. You're not causing any misdirection traffic, just natural free releases off your route combinations.
Everybody's things that identify.
Right. And it's just damning, man. You see every single Ravens pass catcher in week 3 averaged more yards of separation per route run than every single Dallas Cowboys pass catcher route runner. That's just, that should be all that you need to know.
And people will point to personnel first. They won't point to scheme. Most people are going to point to personnel and go, oh, that guy's not getting separation,
Yep. So with that, that's a great point. I'm going to read this, and then I'm going to get off the podium here, and I'm going to let you take it next. this is one of the things I was just trying to bring to light, man, because we're seeing people be mad at the wrong things.
Yeah.
A lot of what was being spoken and emphasized on the Cowboys side of Twitter or media was players got to go make plays. And while, yes, that is true, scheme can help the players go make those plays. And so here's one of the things I said, and let me know if you can see this. I think you can from my side. Here we go. Scheme can make life easy on everyone, but it doesn't, not here in Dallas at least. So we're forced to look at the micro when the macro is staring us right in the face. Macro in this instance being the scheme, the offensive coordinator, the play caller. Scheme is how the Rams can be down their top 2 receivers and the 3 offensive linemen and still beat the Niners. Scheme is how, yes, both teams were battered, but the same thing happened in week 1. Puka Nacua goes down, and then their entire front, I think except for 1 or 2 players, just gets completely deleted in the first half of the game. They're gone. First half of the first game, the Rams are just decimated up front. But still, it didn't matter. You know why? Because Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford, and company still kept them in the game versus the other NFC North star, as I like to call it, and erased a 2-score deficit, right? They should have won that game. They were in a position to beat the Lions despite having everything essentially thrown out as far as their game plan and their playmakers were concerned. So the Dallas team, on the other hand, though, they need 5 all-pro linemen. I'm being sarcastic when I say this.
Yeah, I feel you.
5 all-pro linemen to play perfect, and they have an all-world receiver, an MVP caliber quarterback, and a soon-to-be Pro Bowl tight end, but that's somehow still not even close to being enough. The quarterback took the reins after the bye last year. That's the point I was trying to get to earlier, and I got distracted. That's the way it goes sometimes. But after the bye, Dak Prescott took the reins, similar to what we saw just with the hurry-up in the fourth quarter of that Ravens almost comeback, right? And just kind of doing things all on his own, being responsible for all the protections, the slides, the shifts, and the motions and things like that. And he took control of the reins. Mike McCarthy let go. And that's one of the things. If you're not plugged in, you don't know that. Mainstream media won't tell you. But Dak Prescott pretty much solely put the offense on his back last year. And even despite being in year 1 of a brand new West Coast system, was still the MVP runner-up. And so,
which nobody will talk about.
Nobody talks
about that. You know, and how against the Ravens, how he decided to attack the middle of the field. I mean, first 2 games, that's not how y'all were operating. And you saw as the comeback started to happen, I want to say he hit Jalen Tolbert on that glance route, caught him to the inside touchdown, like all these different things that'll, stretch the defense out more. But I mean, I totally agree. Like pre-snap is something that's super important. And you're talking about at snap is just as important. But, if you don't have those identifiers as a quarterback, you're making everything just much more difficult on him. And you guys are lucky to have a guy like Dak Prescott that can identify those things, at the snap or post-snap, where most quarterbacks are going to struggle in that situation and people are going to just point the finger at that quarterback and say, hey, that guy doesn't know what he's doing. That guy's trash. That guy sucks, and not really knowing what is dependent on the scheme and what isn't.
Yeah, so that's just kind of the secondary thing that we're dealing with right now. And once again, I am very confident that the offense will get right just because of I know that the quarterback's going to make sure that happens. And yes, they are dealing with some hurdles to overcome with 2 rookie offensive linemen, but those are power players. Those aren't space players.
Yeah, I mean, Cooper Beebe, I wanted the Giants to draft him. He's just a mauler. Better in the run game, but he's a mauler. Those are kind of linemen I like on the interior, And then shifted to center. That's cool too.
Right. And so let me talk to you about this for a second, because this was my entire offseason MO, right? A lot of people were saying, and they're proving themselves. I was wrong in this instance, okay? But everybody was saying before the season began, there's no way the Cowboys can be better. They didn't do anything as far as adding talent to the team.
Yeah.
My position was, it's not hard to be better running the ball, because they were that bad running the ball last year.
Yeah.
Number 2, it's not hard to be better stopping the run. But somehow this team found a way to be worse.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. Where did y'all rank at as far as stopping the run last year? I can't remember. I cover y'all a little bit as well.
29th in run stop success. I think it was actually defensive run DVOA. 29th.
Yeah. So it's a little worse, but y'all were already at the bottom third.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely, man. And it plagued us, and like I said, so I very specifically mentioned the Bills, the Packers, and the Niners last year as potentially what the Giants would see. More samples this year, again, Ravens and Saints to some extent. Copy paste. Just go north and south at this team, and we don't have an answer for you.
Yeah.
Like last year, we're playing 205-pound converted safety Marquise Bell at the wheel linebacker. And he's just, dude. I give the dude all the credit in the world for being willing to stick his nose up in there. But at the end of the day, man, this is physics.
He's a little banged up now too, right?
He is banged up, and he's questionable. He's a game time decision for tomorrow as well, just right alongside Kalen Carson. But man, it's the thing is, Cooper Beebe, people mover, certified mauler. You said it,
Yeah, it's Billy Bob from Varsity Blues right there. That's
yeah,
what I call him.
Yes, sir. You put that dude in the middle. Granted, hadn't played center before, but certified mauler, people mover. Cooper Beebe, directly in between a first-team All-Pro, Tyler Smith, and a first ballot Hall of Famer, Zach Martin.
Yep.
From my perspective, in theory, you should be able to control A and B gap a lot better than you did last year and be able to run the football to help out your quarterback.
That's very logical. Mm-hmm.
But this team still can't.
Yeah, I think it is still early, right? And you look at the Saints and the Ravens loss, right?
Yeah.
It's all about getting down on that scoreboard and not being able to commit to the run. When you're down that much and you're, the Saints scored on their first, 4 or 5 possessions? The Ravens scored on their first 2 possessions. If you don't match those scores and you're sitting down by 2 scores, and then you guys case in the Saints game, CeeDee Lamb turning the ball over in the red zone, you're looking at a team pushing that to a 3-score lead. Like, that's when things get dicey for Dak Prescott. I think Dak Prescott is one of the better game managers, if not the best game manager at the quarterback position in the league right now. But you don't want it. That offense is not necessarily built right now, especially without a real bell cow running back, to be able to run the ball when they're down by 2 scores.
We can't. This team can't play from down 2 scores, period. We can't play defense that way either, right?
Yeah.
And that was the whole thing all of last year. It was very well covered and acknowledged, rightfully so, going into the playoffs last year. Hey, this is a front-running team. And I've called it many times on my platforms as well, the most one-dimensional 2 seed, much less just playoff team in general, that I've ever seen. We cannot play from behind.
Yeah.
It's the very reason why, after getting embarrassed the way that we did against the Saints, we win the coin toss against the Ravens, and we don't defer to the second half. We don't want to play defense first because we know what happens.
Right.
But then all of a sudden, all that pressure is on the offense and on the quarterback to go out there and be perfect and go and put points on the board. Otherwise, we're in trouble.
Yeah, and you can't get it done with field goals. You got to do it with touchdowns.
Yeah, yeah. And that's another thing that we need to discuss, just the weapon. The MVP of the Cowboys so far this season is the damn kicker right now. And that's a good problem to have if you're good on every other phase. But right now, we're just not. And so
65-yarder. What was that? That was last game against the Ravens. I mean, he's definitely been clutch.
Yeah.
And it'd be nice if the offense was clicking, but you got to limit the turnovers. And I do think in both these last 2 games that's been an issue with y'all. And it's not correlated to the quarterback. I saw in the game against the Saints when the one wide receiver, I always forget his name, but number 83, coming across the middle on that backside like dig route, he falls down on the route when he has leverage. Then there was the reverse play to Brandon Cooks in the red zone where he's out in front leading the play, gets the block perfectly and just can't hold the block for 1 more second. The Cowboys end up settling for 3. And I don't know if you want to place more emphasis or more blame or whatever it may be on the defense, because if you could play a little bit of like bend, don't break and be holding teams to field goals, then maybe you're in these games. But you're allowing Lamar Jackson to walk down the field, score touchdowns easily too, and they're not easy to defend. So I do get it. But with the Saints, I always felt like the way that game just played out was a little bit fugazi. It was just like it shouldn't have went down like that. If they don't have the big plays that they had in that game, the Cowboys are likely in that game to the end or probably winning. And it dictates the way that the game plan goes, because rather than committing to the run and trying to figure out like who Rico Dowdle really is as a lead back or what Ezekiel Elliott can do, you don't even get that opportunity because you're down just too many points on the scoreboard.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And I will say I want to put an added caveat to my criticism of Mike McCarthy right now. And I have seen a little bit of an effort to get a little bit more creative, but to your point, we just haven't been in the game script, the favorable game script, to be able to tap into that more and sort of rectify some of the things that are plaguing them up front. It's just a little bit, it's like communication, obviously, right now. And but a lot of it is to me, it's kind of hedged on the archaic nature of the 3 men responsible, old school dudes that are responsible for constructing and operating and game planning for this offense, right? So
yeah,
we have to figure that part out. But more importantly, the only talking point for me for this team for this game tomorrow, and it's crazy, and the ultimate team sport in 2024 with all the different analytics and just tools that we can use to grade and evaluate football teams, we can actually finger point and boil it down to one specific position for this Cowboys team that everything is hedging on right now, because they are that deficient at that spot. It's the defensive tackle position.
Yeah.
Right. So I jokingly said it on a project that I'll be releasing probably tomorrow, because after this I'm going to try to get some good shut eye. But there are only 2 things that can correct this Cowboys defense right now. And jokingly, I said one of those is divine intervention. And the second is radical change in the form of throwing every comp pick and probably at least a couple day 2 picks in the future day 2 picks. And that's hyperbolic. Now, you're not throwing every comp pick, because I think we're probably going to have 4 going into next year with everything that happened in free agency this year. We lost a bunch of players, but
yeah.
Bottom line, you're going to have to add some bodies there, because right now you just simply don't have them. And so that's going to be
this game might be a matchup, right down the middle of these 2 defenses, because you can't forget the Giants going up against the Commanders in week 2. That's all they did. And I know we got Dexter Lawrence. To me, that's one of the more intriguing matchups, is going to be Dexter Lawrence going up against a rookie center. I think it's going to be a fun matchup, for us. But Brian Robinson, first 100-yard game ever against the New York Giants, in week 2. And they didn't do it the way that the Vikings did it. The Vikings did a lot of outside zone. They ran right at our edge. The guys that I think struggle to stop the run, 2 speed edge rushers, which to me is not a great pairing, but they're very similar body types when you look at Kayvon Thibodeau and Brian Burns. Instead, the Commanders were just like, we're going to run it right between the A-gaps. And I thought it was interesting that they saw a lot of success doing that. So maybe this will be that kind of game to start off with, rather than the normal Cowboys game plan of really trying to score a lot of points. The Giants aren't a team that scores a lot of points. I think we're averaging like 15 points a game through 3 games right now. So you guys can afford to make more mistakes than we do. We have to go out here and play a perfect game. And it's going to take an explosive play, I feel like, at least 1 or 2 explosive plays from the Giants, where they can't just rely on the run all day. So I know your worries as far as the season go are, interior defensive line. I think that's definitely a thing for you guys moving forward if you want to elevate from where you were last year. I mean, we're talking about a team that won 12 games 3 years in a row, so you have to get better. The Giants are in some weird 1 foot in, 1 foot out type of rebuild where they've still paid some cornerstone pieces, and we're still trying to be patient, I guess, as if we are in a rebuild. And I just don't see the Giants being able to run the ball as effective as it may appear right now. And relying on that. Even back in Buffalo when Brian Daboll was the offensive coordinator over there, he had issues committing to the run. And he had the quarterback where he didn't necessarily have to do that. I always tell my homies, like, if you got Josh Allen on the roster, you're going to be a competitor. He's one of them ones at the quarterback position. He can do it all.
Yeah.
With Daniel Jones, I think he can do some things effective. And, if he has time in the pocket, obviously that's going to help his whole entire game, because he's not one of those people that has it between the ears like a lot of these other quarterbacks. He's a bit of and not in a drastic way, he's just a slower processor, not a guy that's going to go through all the reads and hit a backside. That's just not his style.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it just presents an opening for Dallas to not have to play this perfect game to get back on track tomorrow. But the Giants, I don't think they can afford that luxury. It's either going to be that running game is like clicking out of this world, or your secondary cannot stop what we're going to be doing with Malik Neighbors, and at the same time not getting pressure on Daniel Jones. And that's what they've done a good job of this year, is keeping him upright. And the drastic changes of Daniel Jones from week 1 to week 2 to week 3, not only with his completion percentage and the way he's processing on the field, but his movement in the pocket and his lateral movement in the pocket. We're talking about a Browns defense that was really getting after us. And he was finding a way that if that first read wasn't there, tuck the ball, go get some yards, or to find the second guy and make plays. And he did that pretty much throughout the whole first half. That gave us that comfy lead. But like I said, that Browns offense was never really threatening. So I think it's going to be interesting. Like, our secondary is young and banged up. And if the Dak Prescott that I know comes into this game, I think that this secondary is going to have some problems if they don't get a little bit of pass rush on Dak Prescott. And we're talking, is Shane Bowen going to blitz, or is he going to rely on that front four to get there? Which you talked about your offensive line. Yeah, you guys lost your left tackle to the Jets and whatnot, but you've replaced them with young pieces that are very capable. And Dak is a decisive quarterback. I always tell people on my channel, a decisive quarterback is an offensive lineman's best friend. It makes everything easier up front. It just makes it that much easier. When you have a guy back there like what we saw from Deshaun Watson this past week, you know, the blitz comes in, and some of that can be scheme dependent as well. We've seen that with Jalen Hurts with the last 6 games last year. Philadelphia having no hots installed in their offense and have no answer for the blitz for 6 games. And they're just relying on the quarterback to find a way and run around and try to make a play and play some backyard football. But I think Dallas is a little bit more equipped, a little bit more set up to handle both scenarios from Shane Bowen. If it's going to be get pressure with the front four, I think you guys got the dogs up front to possibly at least make this not an extremely comfortable game for Dak Prescott, but comfortable enough for him to be able to make those big plays necessary to get the ball to CeeDee Lamb. And then if they blitz, I think Dak is just too smart. You know, he's been really good against the blitz.
And that's one of the things, like over the course of his career, especially in recent history, right? Dak is tops in the league against teams that try to blitz him. You can't win that way because it's one of the reasons why, like, the quarterback position it's one of the positions, the rare positions in sports where you continue to get better as you age, even well into your 40s. Sometimes, like what we're seeing now, Tom Brady, obviously, most notably, and Aaron Rodgers, who's 40 years old as we speak, can still operate at a very high, very efficient levels because you can't fool them now. Dak Prescott is in that same category. Year 8 or 8 years in, and counting now. He can diagnose pressure, and oftentimes he finds tells and tendencies that other quarterbacks wouldn't be able to see yet. Okay. For me, and maybe I can I don't know where you're at as far as a confidence level for this game. If I was a Giants fan, I'd probably be at a 9 right now. And the only reason it's not at a 10 is just because the Cowboys simply have had the Giants number over the last half decade and more. If I'm you, there's really one stat to me that can also, like, if we're looking just past the Cowboys defensive tackle position and their ability to play as a cohesive one in the run game, which that's also been the problem. So, like, you have the lack of trust in their ability to be able to just hold a gap, right? So it's causing everybody just to try to play Superman and be hero. And, you got D-Law just completely out of character from what we know about him as a player, just taking himself out of the play, just trying to do too much. Micah Parsons doing the same thing, trying to do too much. Guys just not playing sound gap assignment football, but that's kind of what it's causation correlation type thing, right? And so it all starts up in the middle, okay? But for you, the stat for me that's kind of telling to where I don't believe that the Giants are going to let the Cowboys pass rush win this football game. And I think that the Cowboys should dare Daniel Jones to beat them. They should load the box. They should play man coverage, even though we got sick of seeing that last year. And they should just say, okay, there's 8, 9 guys right here around the line of scrimmage. You guys like to line up in 12 personnel anyways. Let's sell out to stop the run. Otherwise, we don't have a chance anyways. Let's see how poised Daniel Jones can be with all that chaos happening right there on the line of scrimmage. And it just might be a game to where Mike Zimmer has no other choice than to sort of instill some confidence, get one stop, get one turnover, one takeaway, one big play from the defense. Let's just say, I'm sending the house at you from the opening possession. Can you beat me? And I'm not even, like, I swear this sounds like hyperbole. It's not. This is how I currently feel about what is going to have to potentially happen. Now, the interesting thing about this, okay, whether Mike Zimmer does that or not, Daniel Jones right now has a 2.5 ADOT, which is 4th lowest amongst qualifying quarterbacks in the entire National Football League.
Yeah,
right?
He's been like that.
and you guys have 2 pass catchers, Wan'Dale Robinson and Malik Neighbors, who are each in the top 3, 2 of the top 3 in targets below 10 yards.
Yep.
So that alone tells me they're not going to let Daniel Jones be in a position to take sacks and allow this Cowboys pass rush led by Micah Parsons to control and dominate the game the way that it has in years past.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to happen. If for no other reason than forget Daniel Jones, take him out of the equation for what the Cowboys have proven that they cannot do. They cannot stop the run in the middle or just in general. So to me, it's almost like, okay, that low of an ADOT, you're not giving pass rush time to get home, whether Zimmer's blitzing or not. Most cases. Okay, yeah, you got to have good blitz pickup when you're trying to throw it, but that's really where this game is going to be won for me. Right there. For opening possession, if we are trying to still play, if we try to go too high and we're trying to play gap assignment, run defense with 6 guys in the box, if you guys are coming out with 3 wide receiver sets, it's going to be a long day for us. It just is.
You think we'll just keep running it right down the middle of defense?
That's what I would do.
What did you think about the way the Vikings approached it? Because, we went into that game and we ran a lot of 12, a lot of 13, thinking that Flores was going to be blitzing Daniel Jones a lot in that game. And they really just sat back.
Yeah.
And, really got pressure with their front 4, doing a lot of, simulated pressures and whatnot and just getting Daniel Jones thinking pre-snap and whatnot. And I know it was just one game, but he also gave Brock Purdy some fits as well. And I think that has a lot to do with why the Vikings are sitting at 3-0 right now. But each game obviously changes and teams do make adjustments. And I think that the Giants, you saw a strict adjustment in the second and third game to shorten everything up. And then when you get the chance, try to take the shots. Because we did take a couple of shots in Washington, didn't connect on them. I think we took 4 shots in Washington, didn't connect on any of them. And then last week against the Browns, we ran the same concept back-to-back on the right side of the field for Malik Neighbors. And it opened up perfectly because we were running everything underneath all day long. A lot of quick slants, a lot of little in routes, comeback routes and stuff like that, and just relying on Wandale and Malik to get the yak necessary to pick up first downs and whatnot. So it's interesting. I think that there is a mystique around the New York Giants right now. Is this offensive line really that improved where they're going to be able to, stop fronts like you guys, especially with guys like Micah Parsons and D-Law? Are we going to be able to get rid of the ball quick enough? And I think that's where your secondary is going to come into play. If you can get a guy that can just clamp up Malik, that's a difficult task in its own, I think it'll help at least in the passing department there. But it's really are the Giants going to commit to it, knowing that the Cowboys, like you're saying, interior defensive line not being able to stop the run?
Yeah, and that to me, that's going to be the tell. Another thing, too, that I'll be obviously watching is just kind of seeing how Brian Daboll moves Malik Neighbors across the formation because, we touched on it earlier. Yeah, I mean, it would make sense for the Cowboys to travel Trey Diggs.
It really would.
In a lot of cases, that's not really what happened. He kind of stays to one side, and but if you can sort of dictate leverage and coverage by, like we talked about, motion, pre and at the snap, and moving him all around. I'd be isolating if I'm Daboll. I'm playing the chess match right back at the Cowboys, saying who would like for Trey Diggs to be matched up against Malik Neighbors, and Malik has obviously been outspoken about the guy that he's looking forward to most lining up against in this league. So it's fun. I know they'll have their share of battles, but it's a chess match, right? And if I'm Daboll, I'm just saying, okay, well, Trey Diggs wants to play on this side. On the left side, we're going to go move him over here, and let's ISO up on Mr. Booth and see what he's got. He's made.
That's what they did with Denzel Ward. They were staying away from him in that first half, and then it also put Malik Neighbors in the slot, which, I'm a fan of Wandale Robinson, and, I know CeeDee Lamb had some really good comments to say about Wandale, that he's a bit of a sleeper when it comes to route running and stuff like that.
He's a fun player.
He's definitely a guy, but I feel like you could still utilize Malik Neighbors in the slot, and Brian Daboll did do that in the last couple of games, just, moving him around everywhere, having him, close to the line of scrimmage, having him play the outside wide receiver, doing it all. There were even some 3 wide receiver sets where he would be the slot, kind of still far out there. And I think we're going to expect a lot of that tomorrow. But really, I don't know how much 12 personnel they're going to run. They've been very, in the past 2 years, the Giants, let's go three drafts, let's call it. They've addressed tight end every year, right? They drafted Daniel Bellinger first in 2022, traded a third for Darren Waller, and then this year they brought in Theo Johnson. And they worked out 4 tight ends this past week because Lawrence Cage on the practice squad dealing with some injuries as well. So Brian Daboll can't get enough of the tight end position, it seems like. And I don't know how much they're going to run it. it flip-flops. It seems like sometimes they want to – the goal this year seemed like they wanted to stretch the field. And Jalen Hyatt was going to take that role and being the real number 2 wide receiver on the outside. Another guy who I think could be playing in the slot as well.
Yeah.
But they got out there, and that teams are saying we're not going to allow that. All that speed you guys got, we're going to keep it all in front of us. And if you can get pressure with the 4, it'll change this game. And if the Giants can't run the ball, which you talked about it, you're very familiar with Motor. Devin Singletary's a guy that can get yards. And, he's not known for the big play like we saw in the game last week against the Browns, but he's a guy that can get you those 6-yard chunks, those 4-yard chunks, and just keep the down and distance relative for Daniel Jones to be able to at least, just try to convert. And you got to worry about Daniel Jones and his legs as well.
You definitely do. He's a better athlete than anybody, or I guess not anybody, but most people are willing to give him credit for.
Yeah.
And you will see some of the zone read stuff like, hey, I'm also throwing that too. 4th and short, 3rd and short. If I'm Dayball, I'm copying and pasting what the Ravens did. And granted, the ball handling is a skill in its own right. Athleticism is a skill in its own right.
They killed y'all with that. They killed y'all.
Nasty work just on behalf of Lambo, the reigning defending NFL MVP for good reason, right? But
yeah,
they can exploit this Cowboys the eyes, right? Let's see what kind of sound run defense they're willing to play when it really is like when it's, like I said, 3rd or 4th and short, or even around the goal line when it's time to bow up. How disciplined can you remain? And when the bullets are flying, right? And so that's kind of been my thing is the only thing that can save, I talked about the 2 things that can rectify the Cowboys defense earlier, one being divine intervention, the second being radical change with personnel acquisition from outside players. There is the third thing, and it's more so just me and my, I guess just it's the athlete in me that I'll never be able to get out. But can you take embarrassment, which is exactly what happened? You got embarrassed in your run defense the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And can you turn that embarrassment into effort? And if you're willing to just say, okay, this is prime time, this is division rival, this is backs against the wall right here, but we can feel Mike McCarthy in the press conferences getting a little agitated. We can sense CeeDee Lamb getting frustrated. Well, we can't sense it. We can freaking see it. What am I talking about? There's all this tension kind of starting to build, right? All offseason long. What's the storylines for the Cowboys amongst mainstream media? Bunch of lame duck coaches. Mike McCarthy on a 1-year deal. Mike Zimmer on a 1-year deal. At the time, the quarterback was on an expiring contract. CeeDee Lamb holding out. A lot of noise as always, but this year especially, what are you made of? When your back's against the wall, and I guess we're about to find out. But can this Cowboys team, are they willing to say, despite all that stuff, prime time, division rival, this is all out war for 60 minutes. How much of myself, effort-wise, am I willing to give for my brother next to me, on either side of me, for my teammate, right? Can I play with better leverage, better effort, borderline reckless abandon? Because with the defense full of lighter bodies, that's what it's going to take. You're going to need some of that Maris Lufau hair on fire. The guy that's willing to say, okay, I might mess up, but I'm going to mess up at 110 miles an hour and not mess up flat-footed or backpedaling.
Yeah, hesitating. Yeah.
Like we saw with one particular player in the Cowboys secondary. I'm not going to name. Once again, I have a lot of respect for these guys and what they do. It's a business. But it's also their livelihood is involved here, okay? The Cowboys fans who are in the know exactly who I'm talking about. Can you turn embarrassment into effort? Win a couple games. Put your ownership in your GM, your management, the Jones family front office, as I say, right? Put them in a position to be willing to say, okay, yeah, we'll sacrifice a 3rd-round pick next year. All right, we'll throw a couple 4th-round. Let's go get some bodies. We'll help you out a little bit, but show me.
This is that defining game for y'all. I mean, your back's against the wall. Like and it's a I won't say a favorable opponent right now, but it's an opponent that shouldn't frighten you to be able to go out there and give maximum effort. I think it's going to be a pretty close game. It should be a fun one, and those battles we talked about are going to dictate it.
Yeah, And that's a good point too from I think it's your side of things from Mike Jones.
Yeah, that's what I'll be saying when he pulls up too.
He says, don't underestimate the Cowboys having to travel on a short week. That
Absolutely.
can definitely have an effect on them. Absolutely. Yeah. And so that's the thing. All the issues that the Cowboys have schematically, offensively. Guess what, Cowboys fans? Got news for you. Don't expect that to change. You ain't had practice time this week. Sorry. Mike McCarthy can't radicalize his approach to scheme. That we ain't taking the West Coast, the Tex Coast offense, which is stupid, but the Tex Coast offense and turning that into what we want and from somebody of the Kyle Shanahan system. That ain't happening. Sorry.
Yeah, not on the short week for sure.
This is on the shoulders of Dak Prescott, literally one of his shoulders, his right arm tomorrow. Can he be surgical despite having all the disadvantages before the ball is ever even snapped? Okay. Can you not turn the football over? And can we find some way to get one or two stops either on the first or the second drive to where we give our offense two chances to tie the game up or take the lead?
That's what it's about.
It is literally that simple.
Mm-hmm. That's what it's about right there.
Yep. Like we're going to know from the time I don't know how you guys you're more of a methodical offense. Okay. So let's just say it takes you guys on average of your touchdown possessions. You milk 5 minutes off the clock. Okay.
Yeah, sound good.
We're going to know game time, Central Time tomorrow, about 7:20 roughly. Is that correct?
Yep. Kickoff at 8:15.
8:15
Eastern.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 7:15 Central, 8:15 Eastern Time. By 10 minutes and 14 seconds remaining in the first quarter, we're going to know what the Cowboys brought to the Meadowlands with them.
Yeah. Giants will let you know right off the bat too. You know, the games that we don't win, we normally start off 3 and out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I want to say it was 27 straight games they hadn't scored on a first possession touchdown. 27 straight games. Wow. And we just broke that against either the Cleveland Browns or it was the Washington Commanders. Can't remember which game it was. So we know about slow starts, and you think Dak Prescott's not the kind of quarterback that likes to play down on the scoreboard. Same goes for Daniel Jones as well. So whoever gets the lead in this game, that's where it's going to get comfortable for their team, and they're going to be able to try to do things to exploit the other team's offense.
Yeah, and to me, honestly, it's not even that Dak Prescott doesn't like to. I think he's more than comfortable in that position. It's just that the fact that your team isn't built to withstand that.
Exactly.
They just can't. They can't run the football, and they can't stop the run. So that's foundational, you know, and that's football 101, for lack of a better term. I'm gonna get your game against the who'd y'all play week 2? Washington, right?
Washington, yeah.
I'm gonna pull that game up right here, get that flowing.
And you know that was the game where they didn't punt it. Now Washington has gone 2 straight games without punting, and that's where it started. It was all field goals that game for the Washington Commanders. They couldn't score in the red zone. A bunch of red zone penalties. They had 6 penalties within the 10-yard line. But they were walking that ball down the field. And they were doing it with the run for the most part and a little bit of short passing attack from Jaden Daniels.
I heard the stat that blew my mind.
I love this play because Graham would know.
Can you see this on your end as well?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So stream, yeah. All right, cool. I was just making sure. The Giants were the first team in week 2 to score 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And to give up 0.
Yep.
In NFL history. And lose the football game.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy, man.
That is wild.
And that would be the thing that would happen to the New York Giants, man. Like so many statistics over the years have been like that for us.
That's so true. That is such a Giants stat.
Yeah, it's a Giant stat, man.
Yeah, it really is. I'm sorry to laugh at that. I just need.
Nah, it's real, bro. Like I'm a realist, man. Like you said by nature you're pretty optimistic, and I'm not like that. I'm always like, but wait a minute. Like I'm always the guy who's like questioning stuff, and you know what I mean. And I get it, man. We've been a bad team since I've been podcasting. We pretty much have been a bad team outside of 2022, where the schedule just presented. I felt like a couple of winnable games to be able to move into the playoffs like that, and then you get some surprise wins like the Ravens and the Packers game and whatnot. But it's been a thing like that for the Giants, man. But it seems like those things are kind of Malik Neighbors comes here, and some of those things are kind of coming to an end because I had a stat that I was running with on my channel for 2 seasons almost, where it started around maybe 30 games for Daniel, and it ended at 41. He went 41 straight regular season games without having 2 passing touchdowns in back-to-back games. He went 41 straight regular season games like that. And he just broke that against Cleveland. It started here against the Commanders. I mean, there's been so many stats at the quarterback position that have just lasted that long. But this game in particular was interesting because a lot of people were questioning Shane Bowen at this moment in time. Like, why isn't he sending pressure? Why isn't he blitzing? Why are we in soft zone? Like, look at how our corners are on the wide receivers. We were allowing things just to be right in front of us the whole day. And Jaden Daniels was kind of just eating that up for the most part. But more importantly, on the ground, they were kicking our butt. 215 yards on the ground for Washington in that game.
I mean, we know what that feels like, right? We just gave up 270.
Yeah.
To the Ravens last week, and 190, I believe, the week prior to the Saints. But they put the e-brake on in the third quarter. They were just like, all right, we ain't trying to score. Let's just get up out of here, man. We'll
won that game in the first half, man. And kind of the Ravens too, man. Won it in the first half. You get that big lead.
No question. Yeah. Did you see that? I heard this going in from somebody. I can't remember who said it, but the Ravens they're tied for the most blown leads after winning by 10 points or more since 2021. They're most in the NFL.
It feels like that. It does feel like that. They've definitely blown some games where you're just like, man. And I don't know what that is. Like, Lamar talked about it with Harbaugh after the game. He said, taking your foot off the gas like that, we don't want to do that. Kind of called out the coach a little bit. But some of that's on Lamar too. Like, I can think about the game when we played them in 2022. They had a 2-score lead in that game. And then the Giants end up coming down the field. Daniel Jones leads a drive. We score a touchdown. Lamar gets the ball back, and he's just like panicking in the pocket, trying to find somebody, tries to like throw it to a third-string tight end. It wasn't Isaiah Likely. It was the guy who was behind him on like a third down where you just need to ground it and punt the ball.
Charlie Kohler.
Yeah, and then we end up getting the interception. And then the next drive, he holds on to the ball too long in the pocket, and Kayvon Thibodeau strip sacks him, and we end up winning the game. So, that's been a theme with Lamar in that offense, just trying to play a little bit too much hero ball at times. And he's one of my favorite quarterbacks. I really do like Lamar Jackson, but it's those mistakes where people are kind of like, and then they're in weird moments, playoff moments and stuff like that, kind of trying to do too much.
Yeah, he's incredible to watch, man. And same thing, actually, right here, real quick. I'm seeing a couple questions, and I do, you've blessed us with your time, man. Been more than great with that. You flexed your schedule for me too. I know you said 5:30 Central Time would have been ideal for you. I took my oldest daughter tonight on a date to Chick-fil-A. That's why you saw the Chick-fil-A cup here. So we had
Chick-fil-A is crack. I love it.
It is, man. That's my favorite place because it's chicken nuggets, it's the playground, and it's ice cream all in one place. So it's like it's heaven for a 2.5-year-old.
Can't beat it.
Man, you can't beat it. It was fun, but thank you so much for. I'm not saying it's time to get out, but whenever you got a wrap, brother, just let me know and
yeah, no doubt.
And we can can it for sure.
Let me ask you something. Are you seeing the 2 super chats on your end? I don't know if because we're split streaming, they might be just on my side.
I saw one earlier from.
There was on my side. I at least see one from Big Mike, and then another one from a homie Door Gunner.
I see Door Gunner. I don't see Big Mike's unless I might have just breezed right past it. I'm not seeing Big Mike's yet. Maybe it might pop up late.
I got you. Yeah.
I'm maybe getting.
He just asked, "What realistic change does the Giants have in coming away with a win on Thursday night?" And I kind of touched on that too. I think it has a lot to do with Shane Bowen, and it's just like the balance of these 2 game plans that we saw in this game right here against Washington, and what we saw last week against the Browns. Because you can't just allow Dak Prescott to have all the time that he wants standing in that pocket. So it's like, how do we generate pressure? And to me, it's just the biggest question mark for me right now. I don't know how they're going to approach this game. And I know if Bowen goes back to his soft zone type of ways, a lot of fans are going to be, they were calling for his job. Like, you got to think about it. With the Giants just 2 weeks ago, they were burning Daniel Jones jerseys in the parking lot. They were booing him, screaming at him as he came out from the locker room that has like an exit where fans can just stand there and just heckle the players, which is crazy, to talking about firing Brian Dable, firing Joe Shane, and firing Shane Bowen. Like, they just want a clean house, right? And I was a part of that brigade a little bit as well. Yeah. And then you get one win against the Cleveland Browns, and it's like, now it's like we're reinvigorated. We're ready to go now. Maybe if we win this game, we can be right at the top of the division with the Commanders if they lose, on Sunday to the Arizona Cardinals and the Philadelphia Eagles lose. So it's a really interesting place to be in the NFC East right now, because the better teams, like I had the Philadelphia Eagles as the front runner coming into the year. A.J. Brown goes down. That really hurts their offense. And I thought you guys would be at number 2. And, you know, you guys get a slow start. But like you said, last year, this kind of happened with y'all. And you have a tough schedule to start the year. People didn't think the Saints were going to be anything this year. I forgot they even won 9 games last year. You know, and then they come out here this year and they're
defense under. Yeah, I mean, it's been real with the players that they have on that side. The veterans at every level. Like you got Mario Davis at the second level, Cam Jordan up front, and then name slips my mind in the secondary.
Honey Badger in the secondary.
Yes. So and then obviously Marshawn Lattimore.
Marshawn Lattimore as well. Yeah. And that's Dennis Allen, man. Dennis Allen's had that defense balling for 8 years now, you know, and people just kind of forget it because you know, everyone focuses on the quarterback, like you were talking about earlier.
With Breeze, it's like, oh, the Saints aren't a threat, but here they are ripping off 8, 9, 10 win seasons every year since, seemingly. But
yeah, man. 90 points. They had over 90 points in the first 2 games. And no one had ever done that. I think there was like 4 teams to ever do that. So
yeah,
I knew they would come back down to earth, though, because you cannot just rely on explosive plays. I think you have to have other ways to beat defenses and have that balance of sometimes being methodical, but also at times, you know, dialing up that big shot. And I pray that we can get some of those against y'all. If we get some big shots against y'all and some explosive plays, the Giants could win this game. We shock y'all in that first quarter and get an explosive play, get on the scoreboard, make a stop, hold you to a field goal, score another touchdown. Before you know it, it might be 14-3, and the New York Giants are kind of trying to coast to a victory. But same thing could happen on your side of the ball as well. And I do expect it a little bit more from your side. I just think Dak Prescott knows how to play at MetLife. The Giants haven't beat Dak Prescott in MetLife since his rookie season. So it's been a while. And, you know, like you said, these streaks can come to an end, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, streaks that's what they're for. They're made to be broken, right? I did want to address this comment really quickly here too, because it's the other team that I cover along with Inside Texas. If you're a Texas fan and you're not subscribed to or following along closely to the Inside Texas team that I feel so fortunate to be a part of, then you're missing out, because it is the most comprehensive coverage of Texas Longhorns football, period. The number 1 team in the country right now. Horns always up. Actually, I got a little drop for that one. I just had to, man. I'm sorry.
I like it.
Finish without that, but the Arch Manning thing, if that's totally fine, that's your wish. And I saw the praying hands. Yeah, you pray harder, because he's not coming out anytime soon. Right, this team this year, Arch Manning is going to play at least 1 more full season, but most likely 2. So he's going to be a redshirt junior, complete his redshirt junior season before he comes out into the NFL draft. So that's 2 more draft cycles away from even thinking about that. So
talking 2027.
Yeah, patience is a virtue there if that's your dream. And I'm not saying it's a bad dream to have, but I'm just saying, just bringing a little context to the situation here. This is Quinn Ewers' team, and Arch Manning, the Manning family empire, as I like to refer to it, they bought into Coach Sarkisian as the guy that's going to develop him and get him towards the end goal, which is playing in the National Football League and being ready to go from day one when he gets there. And there's no coach in college football right now with the resume and the pedigree of doing that. And so, you know, that was when there were still question marks at the time of his commitment around Steve Sarkisian and the Texas program in general, coming off an 8-5 season. It was okay. Now we go, because I knew I already had my preconceived notions, but if I get the Manning family empire stamp of approval on the guy best suited in the country to develop their protege, their prodigy, and get them into the league, that's all I need to hear. I'm good. And now we're seeing the fruits of all of his labor start to come to fruition, right? The last thing that I wanted to touch on, man, and then we'll get to some questions and we'll roll. The Cowboys, if they don't approach, so got a stat here as well. The Giants defense currently allows the 5th most rush yards per carry in the NFL. And yes, it's early in the season, so some of these statistics can be skewed based on sample size, right? So not enough data yet to make to have an accurate depiction of what's real, okay? But still worth acknowledging, 5 yards per carry. That's what you guys give up on a per carry basis, okay? The Cowboys, though, conversely, Cowboys fans are well versed in this as well. We are 4th worst running the football right now at 3.6 yards.
Yeah, it's been bad.
So the point is, if you want to help your defense out, Mike McCarthy, there's a really good old-fashioned, or I guess football 101 way of doing that. Let's go heavy personnel against a team that's struggled early on this year to stop the football. and let's try to get the ground game going. Let's do it with 2 tight ends on the field early and often and throughout the game, or 2 running backs on the field. There's this guy by the name of Hunter Lipke. I'm not sure if Giants fans may not be familiar yet. They should be soon. Cowboys fans know exactly who he is. North Dakota State product, undrafted free agent, made the roster, the 53 last year as a rookie. Any UDFA that's making the roster as a rookie is noteworthy achievement, right? Good player, fun, like Swiss Army knife. Think of Kyle Juszczyk. That's who Cowboys fans liken him to.
Got you.
Juszczyk is obviously a rare breed, but this is a fullback who played running back in college at North Dakota State. Okay, we saw him essentially replace Jake Ferguson on a flag route. I like to call it just a little corner. When in from 12 personnel, Hunter Lipke and Jake Ferguson were aligned right there on the left.
I saw the play. Yeah. On Kyle Hamilton, right?
Yep. Yes, sir.
I saw it.
And amazing what happens. Explosive play. Everything that we touched on earlier, the 3 things that sort of simplify offense for the quarterback, just make life easier, the easy buttons, right? Pre-snap and at-snap motion, misdirection, and play action all happen on the same exact play.
Yeah.
And what do you know? Dak Prescott hits a fullback, a guy who's listed as a fullback, on like a 20-yard corner route.
Yeah, I saw that. He went a little 7. I was like, that's so crazy. People were saying he burnt Kyle Hamilton, but the play action is what got him to step up a little bit, kind of slipped, got behind the defense.
That's it. And Kyle Hamilton, he's not expecting – that's the thing. That's what the point I'm trying to make here. He's not expecting Hunter Lipke to run a route. That's Jake Ferguson's job. Jake Ferguson, too. I saw somebody in the chat earlier mentioned the Cowboys, all they have is CeeDee Lamb offensively. Jake Ferguson is on his way to being either a Pro Bowl or an all-pro player in this league. If it's not this year, it'll be next year. He's a great player, man. And Travis Kelce said he's the next best version of me up and coming in this league. That's not my words. That's Travis's words. You can take it or leave it. It don't matter.
I don't think that's too egregious. That's pretty spot on.
Yeah, and they wear the same number 2, which is also it's fitting. It's kind of poetic.
There was an emphasis to get him involved in week 1, I remember, and it just wasn't connecting. He had a couple little drops or something too, and just like they just weren't in sync quite yet. But against the Ravens, you saw a bunch of big plays.
Yeah, and that's going to continue to happen. That is a weapon, a guy that the Cowboys need desperately to step up to make plays. But the point I was getting at, and I'll put a bow on this, it's you kind of take the Giants, you eliminate Brian Burns and or Kayvon Thibodeau, whoever. I'm guessing it'd probably be Brian Burns who would play more off ball. But if you put them in just like a traditional base package by playing with 2 running backs, and if one of those running backs is the guy who's listed as a fullback but can do tight end things as a pass catcher, is incredible. And pass protection, right? Hunter Lipke has been so good in that department. We're seeing Zeke Elliott just completely phased out of the game plan. We don't need him to pass protect anymore. That's Hunter Lipke's job now. He's doing that. He's taking on some of the Zeke Elliott role. And by the way, he's a solid 15 to 20 pounds heavier than Zeke, but he's every bit. He's more fluid, obviously, with the way less tread on the tires. But he's a capable playmaker here. And what the point I'm trying to make. How many times can I say that in a 5-minute stretch?
Nah, it'd be like that. It'd be like
wrap
that.
It up. Yeah,
you're gonna land that plane. Don't trip.
Punchline, man. If you put him on the field with Jake Ferguson, and you can even go, 13, or you can go 22 if you want. I'm fine.
Who's you guys' other tight ends? Shoemaker.
Yeah, Scooney. He's that's another dude who is sort of not exactly in the best graces with Cowboys Nation right now. Cowboys fans hate Michigan players, but that's neither here nor there. It's low hanging fruit stuff. It is what it is. Taco Charlton and then Mozzie Smith and now Luke. Jordan Lewis though deserves to be mentioned there. I honestly should dedicate an entire video to Jay Lou for what he's overcome in his career, become a really good player right now. But in the slot corner position for us, Tatanka is the guy that we call Hunter Lipke. He's the Bison from North Dakota State. He can do everything. Okay. But what he also does is he puts Brian Burns off ball a lot more often. You can mix and match. You can isolate Brian Burns with him, if you put him in motion at the snap or have some misdirection things going on, you can get him isolated on a linebacker, and he can win. If he can beat Kyle Hamilton on a 20-yard, little corner route, he can beat a linebacker.
Absolutely.
And he can make plays for you. He can just be a weapon. And it just, another thing too, man, is just you're simplifying. If you just commit to playing heavier, regardless of all the other nuances that I've been touching on all show here for an hour and 35 minutes, just commit. Help your rookie offensive lineman out. Like, they had to pass protect 51 dropbacks for Dak last week. Yeah, they're going to grade bad. Yeah, they're going to revert to some of their old tendencies. And sure, you say reps being thrown into the fire helps, but man, instill some confidence in those dudes. And these are people moving players, right? 6'8", 330 on the left tackle spot. Tyler Guyton, fluid athlete, like one of the best athletes we've ever seen. The reason he was the 5th tackle taken in the draft, or 6th, I think now. He was actually the 6th. Ben can tell us. Ben's the resident draft.
Yeah, facts. That's my dog. Shout out, Ben.
Yeah, he's the one. It's because he just hadn't played on the left side of the formation, right? At OU, he was protecting Dylan Gabriel's blind side. He was lefty. Mm-hmm. So the physical tools are off the charts. But listeners of my show know I've talked about all the things, all the reasons that we know now he's wired the right way in between the ears too. I'm not going to get into that. Same thing with Cooper Beebe. You mentioned it earlier. Certified dog and the run people mover, right? Forklifting people, all like making a living out of that. And he's 20 pounds bigger than the Cowboys' weakest link up front with Tyler Biadasz last year at the center position. Let's lean on them. Let's lean on people a little bit. Yeah, I know Dexter Lawrence is lurking on the other side of the formation over there. Yeah, I know. Fun, yeah, it's going to be a hell of a matchup. But if we don't lean into what I thought we could lean into, then it's not going to matter. But the way that you do that, man, commit to playing heavier personnel, and let's change the mentality. We don't have to be a finesse space playing team. Sure, a quarterback's got the ability to do that and lead you to the promised land in the regular season, but in the postseason, we know it don't matter anyway. If you're one-dimensional in nature, you don't have a chance. You can't win.
Got to run the ball when it gets cold,
tomorrow.
Man.
Let's start tomorrow. The Giants giving up 5 yards per carry. Let's see if we can take that 3.6 so far on the season. Let's get Rico Dowdle going. Let's let him average 4.5. Let's have some fun. That's all I'm saying. And Hunter Lipke, though, he's a problem as a lead blocker. And I just, to me, that's a Swiss Army knife. His talents are being wasted right now. Yeah. And you get him on the cheap, an undrafted free agent. And I'm going to let you put your thoughts on that. I got to use the restroom. I might pee my pants if I don't.
I got you, man. Yeah, I definitely feel a lot of points he's saying there, man. But I think what a lot of Cowboys fans might not know is that the Giants' defense, their front has been a little underwhelming against the run as far as the edge goes. So I think they should be able to have some success there, man. Like it shouldn't be that difficult of a task for the Dallas Cowboys to run the rock, but might be interesting. This game could be one of those ugly type of trenches games. Both offenses running a lot of 12, running a lot of 13, and see who can get in the end zone first doing that, and then maybe try to open it up a little bit later. But we'll see, man. I see a lot of gangers in the chat, man. Shout out to all of y'all, man, for rocking out with us. We almost gone 2 hours. It's been a major day of streaming today. I see OG Knockout in the building. Let me see what OG said. OG said, ask yourself, can the Giants match the Cowboys points for points? I'm saying no. Defense and some luck are going to win this game. This is pressure on Daniel Jones to beat the Cowboys. Yeah, we know what it's been with Daniel Jones against the Cowboys. This win could mean a lot for him, though, OG. If Jones could come away with the victory against the Cowboys, I think it'll boost his stock a little bit. But I definitely think it, I was telling them, like, it could be just an ugly first quarter, bro. It really could be. It could be like a lot of heavier personnel from both sides trying to establish the run for a whole quarter. And maybe it's not this high-scoring, high-flying type of game we think is going to be early on. And, maybe they'll try to open things up as the game goes along. But I like the matchup, like motor and then, your rushing attack. There's not that drastic of a difference between the two. The Giants just commit to that 12 personnel. It's already on tape, a bunch. And, maybe for you guys, it's something that you kind of got to pull from left field here to see if y'all can do that. But I think it'll be a very balanced game. I just think it'll be a balanced game. I'm imagining a score somewhere in the 20s that opens up a little bit more in the second half for both teams. But Giants can't make mistakes, man. It's Daniel Jones' kryptonite. If he throws an interception and loses the confidence that he's built up from these last 2 games, I mean, you guys could feast. You guys could feast. And we saw that in the Minnesota Vikings game off the first interception. You make that mistake. You saw it in the preseason against the Houston Texans on that first drive. You know, he throws a pick 6, and it's like it's over at that point pretty much. So we'll see how it goes. I do think turnovers are going to matter, but
yeah,
this is one of those ones in the trenches, man, like running the rock. We say it on my channel all the time, man, RTDB. I even said STFURTDB. Run that damn ball, man. Like everybody tries to like just diminish what a running back or what a running game does for an offense, man. And I always say there's 2 types of quarterbacks. Like there are quarterbacks that can get it done without the running game, but even look at Patrick Mahomes with the Chiefs, man. They still go out there and try to establish the run all the time.
Talk about it now. Last year, that was a much different approach than we've seen for them. That defense and that running game carried them. And it's not to say that Patrick Mahomes necessarily needed to be carried, but it's just, hey.
Make it easier, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah. We didn't necessarily have the weapons that we had in years past. Okay. I mean, hey, here we go. Let's run the rock and we'll do it. And we'll find creative ways to do it. Right. The team's consistently at the top of the league, percentage-wise, with all the things that we've talked about all show long. It's your usual suspects, the ones who fantasy owners are always looking to have shares of in the offense. Now it's the 49ers, it's the Chiefs, it's the Ravens, it's the Rams, it's the latest of those teams now coming to light, and we're gonna see some fun stuff once Jordan Love gets healthy. It's the Packers.
Absolutely.
Willis 2-0,
killing it.
You think that's Malik Willis standing back in the pocket doing that?
Nope.
No.
Barely throwing the ball, man.
Carried the football 38 times.
Yeah.
In his first start, and they got the win.
Yep.
38 carries.
I love that from LaFleur, too, to be able to take a game plan that it's totally different when Jordan Love's out there. They're vertical.
Yeah.
And then Malik Willis, we know his skill set. He can run the rock. You go out there and you build a completely different game plan. And you're giving him baby steps to grow. Second game, threw the ball a little bit more, made some plays with his legs. I'm a huge Malik Willis fan. I always thought he had the skill set to be a good quarterback in this league. He just needed the right system, and LaFleur is definitely doing that for him, man. A lot of Giants fans were piling on Malik Willis because a lot of Giants fans wanted him to be drafted. He's sitting there in the 3rd round, and we're like, get him. And a lot of people were more like pro Daniel Jones and whatnot, like, nah, look at him. He's terrible. He's only had 2 starts before he got to Green Bay, and you see now with the different system just looking really good. I think you got to add the Eagles to that list too, a team that has been able to run the ball all the time. But Nick Sirianni, for some weird reason, don't want to commit to it. Saquon didn't even have a carry in the first quarter last week.
He didn't have a carry in the first quarter?
He didn't have a carry in the first quarter. He got his first carry with like 11 minutes left in the second quarter. I think they gave him 4 or 5 carries in the first quarter, and I just don't understand. Like, just the way you get Jalen Hurts going is use him as a runner as well, and then commit to Saquon Barkley, and then you can open up all that stuff. But hopefully they get back to it when, for their sake at least, when A.J. Brown gets back in the lineup. But Saquon put that team on his shoulders, man. Like, the big runs, doesn't look like he really lost a step to me. Getting those chunk runs of 8-10 yards consistently now, man. Like, I love what I'm seeing from Saquon and Philly. They just got to commit to it, or Nick Sirianni probably not going to be there for too long if he doesn't. Yeah,
I posted my thoughts on Bill Belichick to the Cowboys. If you haven't seen that, please check that out. Just Google.
I will.
No show, not you, but just anybody in general.
No, I will, because that's been talk in New York Giants community too. Like, bring Bill Belichick back. So
that's what I was going to say. The Eagles fans are in my mentions talking about, no, he's coming to the Eagles, bro. So I'm like, it's wild. It's wild.
That's crazy.
I'll go ahead and I guess I'll tease it, or I'll spoil the. Spoiler alert, I don't think it's happening, but you guys can go find out why. I'll let y'all Google that and go run the numbers a little bit more for me.
That would be wild. A little what was it, Bill Parcells type of vibes again, kind of everybody always wants history to repeat in football, and I don't get it. I'm just like, man, move on, move on.
Yeah, it's time to turn the page. Now, the one thing that I will say could take him out of that cush role that he's got in sports media right now is, he's 20-something wins away from breaking the record as all-time winningest head coach. So I could obviously see a guy at his age doing that, or having that urge. But to me, that urge ain't gonna be in Dallas, but
Yeah, I
we'll
feel you.
see. We'll see, man. Anyway, I got one last question for you, and we'll get up
Okay.
out of here. It is y'all got a couple injuries in your secondary in your own right. Is Isaiah
Yeah.
Simmons going to be playing nickel corner for y'all tomorrow, or y'all got
I
what's
don't
going
think
on?
so.
I'm
I don't think
obviously
so.
being just a little sarcastic, but what's
You
the
know what's crazy is Shane Bowen, when he first got here, that's what he had said. He said, we're going to try to use
Yep.
Isaiah Simmons on first and second down,
Yep.
playing nickel, and then on third down as a money backer.
Yeah.
He just doesn't, sometimes when you're a Swiss Army knife, jack of all trades, you really can't find your role. And I think that's happening with Isaiah. But tomorrow, I would expect Nick McLeod, Cordell Flott, one of them in the slot. Flott led us in tackles last week. He's built like me. He's like a $170 or something like that. So I don't know how that's going to work out. We tried last year moving Adoree Jackson to the slot position. I don't know if you remember that, going up against you guys, because CeeDee Lamb played the slot so much, maybe like around 50% of his snaps in the slot. That didn't work out. They quickly moved Adoree back to the outside.
Yeah.
It's going to present some matchup issues for us. And, that's why I'm worried if Dak Prescott does get the time, like, we might just get cooked out there. We have a very young secondary, and even with Deonte Banks, he's a capable corner, but, like, you put him on an island, you saw what Amari Cooper did to him last week. So
Sure. Yeah, that's a technician, man. There's talk now too about the Cowboys trading to reacquire Amari Cooper. I'm out here talking about, which to me I also don't really see, because if you're in the weeds of that situation, there's some like personal behind the scenes reasons as to why he was let go for the low price of a 5th round pick that he was. And one of those is it's the lack of commitment. Like Jerry Jones was talking, like publicly mentioning his name in cahoots with, like, just basically saying, like, hey, how committed are you? Because this was back in 2020, right, when the COVID stuff was still peak, and Amari Cooper remained unvaccinated, and he was ridiculed for that, and the Joneses didn't like that. How much of a team guy are you? And he's constantly battling lower body ailments and things like that, not practicing all the time, so that rubs some people wrong. But I guess if Jerry's really all in, which he's kind of proven to us that he's not, as far in the sense that Cowboys fans wanted it to mean originally, Jerry can spin it however he wants. That's why he's the master salesman, the master marketer that he is. That's built up the most valuable sports franchise in the world. He's always going to keep his name in the headlines. But sure, I mean, I guess I could see it, because this team is lacking. They do need one extra playmaker, but to me, Cowboys fans have written off Brandon Cooks a little bit prematurely, and it's another indictment from the malpractice moniker that I'm painting Mike McCarthy with. And it's nothing against Mike McCarthy as a person, but I just think that his outdated ways of scheming and coaching offensive football are just not going to work, and it's going to be the reason that he does get fired this year, whether we turn it around or not, whether we beat the Giants tomorrow night or not. It's so, like, this question here, and thank you for the super chat. I believe that's on your side of things, but if the Giants pull off this victory tomorrow, who will Jerry Jones make the scapegoat for the 3 straight losses? I know it sounds crazy, but I think it'll be McCarthy. He's a lame duck, as is. Also, go Big Blue. So it doesn't tick out. Maybe to Giants fans, it does sound crazy. The national media will make Dak the scapegoat, but if you're talking about Jerry Jones in particular, and who Cowboys fans will paint the scapegoat, it won't be a scapegoat. It'll be the true goat, and that is Mike McCarthy. For a lot of the reasons that I've mentioned, but Jerry Jones is the real issue as well, because they tried to bargain shop and put a 35-year-old Band-Aid in the form of Linval Joseph and what we know now to be a past his prime player and Daniel Jones, right? Or I'm sorry, Jordan Phillips.
Jordan Phillips, yeah.
Those 2 Band-Aids on what I like to acknowledge as the largest bullet hole, the biggest hole on any roster of any position room in the entire National Football League. It's the Cowboys defensive tackle room.
That's saying a lot too. Yeah, I feel you though.
And I don't believe that to be hyperbole. Once again, y'all, I don't say things just to hear myself speak. I believe that to be the case. So anyway, Jerry Jones is for a lot of reasons, an issue. But I do think Stephen Jones honestly deserves more of the criticism because he's kind of the one that's running the team building ship. Jerry is a little bit more willing to kind of to do things off the cuff, but he's not really responsible for what's happening right now. It's his own flesh and blood, Stephen Jones himself. That's kind of the more conservative one, and we've seen that play out ever since he's taken over. Really, since 2014, it's kind of been the trend. But
yeah,
any parting
Cooks can have a big game. He did have a big game against the Giants last time we saw y'all. He put up like 160 on us, and CD had over 100 in that game too. So
yeah, it's just about the way that he's deployed, though. I forgot to thank you for reminding me about that Brandon Cooks point that I wanted to make. Brandon Cooks is a speed guy. Okay, you don't ask speed guys to run stop routes,
right?
Period. And that's what he's been doing, and it's just yet another indictment. So get him going, verticals, deep digs, drags, even cross the middle, just catching the ball on the move, and in breaking routes, right? It's literally that simple. And it's just wild to me that so many. I mean, they've given us the ability now. So I can go on a live stream with Awthentik and we can talk about this matchup, and I can literally show you evidence, all 22 evidence, and we can watch film together virtually, and we can see things and we can look up things. Like the NFL Pro gives you tools that tell you, hey, what's working right now.
What a time, man. What a time. Like, you remember when we used to have to wait for Sports Center and all that? And it's a different day and age. Yeah, I love it.
Me too, man. Well, Awthentik, thank you so much for being here, brother. I got a feeling, we running it back. I guess our second matchup this year is also on Thursday Night Football. So, at the latest, Week 13. Well, I'll just go ahead and say it, man. I'd love to do this again. If our schedules line up, we can make it happen. Would love to. And I'll go ahead and part, and then I'll let you close us out. But the thing that I always like to say, man, closing this thing out, prayer changes things. The war is already won. Okay, let go, and let God have it, and you'll be all right. You'll be just fine. So that's all I got.
Yeah, man. Well, thank you for having me, man. I'm glad Nick's connected us on Twitter to make this happen and whatnot. He had me on his channel a while back, man, and the Dallas Cowboys community in general. So it's a lot of good people in that community that I've chopped it up with. Vach being one of them.
OG
Skywalker being another one. It's a lot of good people in y'all community that I've chopped it up with, and again, getting to meet you here, man, and chop it up with you for a little while before this game. It's gonna be exciting to see how this matchup goes, and getting to pick your brain today and kind of see where you saw the lanes for the Cowboys was really cool, man. So I'm definitely down to run it back. And if you want to ever come on my channel and chop it up, man, we stream so much, man. We're like 4 days a week, sometimes 5 days a week, man. We definitely go in on this content stuff. You're always welcome to pull up. And yeah, thanks for having me. And for anybody that's in your chat that wants to check us out, it's just Awthentik and the Beard, the way I spell it, AWTHENTIK, and the Beard. And we cover y'all. So we got a lot of Cowboys fans, man. Shout out to all my Cowboys homies that I've met through the years on different channels, man, like my homie Gregory, a bunch of other people, man. Kai is always in the building rocking out with us. We do previews and recaps on Tuesdays and Thursdays of the whole entire NFC East. So it's a very different lens and a perspective. We both live in DC, and it's just a different vibe on our show, man. So appreciate all y'all for rocking out with us today, man. I love the nerds and the geeks of this football stuff, man, that they follow this kind of stuff and they want to watch all 22 and try to gain as much access and as much information and opinions they can possibly get. So again, man, blessed to be a part of this day and age, and thank you for having me on your channel, my dog.
Absolutely, as always, and thank you, Ben, for the last second super chat. You did a super chat, handing them out like candy. Appreciate that, Ben. You're the real one, dude. I always enjoy your perspective. But that's been a wrap. Cowboys at Giants tomorrow night, primetime, Thursday Night Football. Y'all enjoy the game. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm not even going to give you a command other than if you enjoyed this content, if you found it enlightening and engaging, entertaining, whatever the case may be. Tell a friend, because the chances are that if you're enjoying this content, somebody that also is as well. And that's how people like myself and Awthentik here continue to grow and take this thing to the moon, the levels that we know that we're capable of reaching. And it's only a matter of time, right? But you guys can help us get there. Without y'all, we are not us. So that's it. Enjoy the game, and we will talk to y'all soon. Stay tuned. Week 13, I guess we'll say that's our till we meet again.
Facts.
Thanks again. See you guys.